Good morning, I'm Maiki Oreta and you're watching Business 360, where we break down the numbers, connect the dots, and give you the developments and the insights you need to navigate, adapt, and lead. Let's dive right in. Finance Chief Ralph Recto warns the multi-billion-peso flood control scandal could slow the Philippine economy. A breakthrough for transparency, Ombudsman Jesus Crispin Remulla opens public access to SALNs of government officials. And in world news, Israel cuts aid to Gaza, citing delays in Hamas's return of hostage remains. Let's take a look at how global financial markets performed overnight. Wall Street ended mixed as investors digested mostly upbeat earnings from major U.S. banks, alongside new comments from Federal Reserve Chair Jerome Powell and fresh uncertainty in the U.S.-China trade front. A string of big lenders reported solid results driven by strong investment banking revenues. Powell said the U.S. labor market remains stuck in a low firing pattern through September, but noted the economy may be on a firmer trajectory than earlier expected. President Donald Trump, meanwhile, said Washington is considering terminating select trade agreements with China in an effort to reduce dependence on certain imported goods.
NASDAQ down a little bit, which suggests this is moving away from the tech trade and maybe more towards, industrials. But also, the last time I looked, the Russell 2000 was also up a lot. So small cap stocks. So investors, on the one hand, they seem to be more in looking for safer kinds of stocks. So moving away from tech, moving away from the higher volatility names to lower volatility names. But at the same time, they're also looking at the small cap stocks. So it's a little bit of a bifurcated market.
The Dow Jones Industrial Average up by 0.4%, the S&P 500 down by 0.2%, and the Nasdaq lower by 0.8%. Over in Europe, markets also closed mixed. The UK's FTSE 100 higher by 0.1%, Germany's DAX lower by 0.6%, and France's CAC 40 down by 0.2%. Here at home, Finance Secretary Ralph Recto warned that the Philippine economy could slow until early 2026 as controversies over anomalous infrastructure projects continue to drag on public spending. Recto told a Senate hearing that growth likely eased in the third quarter, with the issue prompting a 255 billion peso cut to the DPWH's budget for 2026. He said that the slowdown could extend into next year, but the economy should still hit the lower end of the government's 5.5 to 6.5 growth target. Now, Recto added that the corruption scandal has weighed on revenue collections and infrastructure spending, though he remains confident in an eventual recovery. He estimates that it could take 2 to 3 quarters at most to fix the flood control issue, acknowledging that infrastructure spending will definitely contract next year. Economists say that the impact could spill over into construction, jobs, and investor sentiment, making government reform and transparency key to restoring confidence in the recovery. The flood control scandal continues to widen as the Anti-Money Laundering Council moves to freeze assets linked to a key DPWH accountant in Bulacan. The AMLC is freezing the bank deposits, properties, and vehicles of Juanito Coronel Mendoza, an accountant at the controversial DPWH Bulacan Engineering District, where anomalous and ghost flood control projects have been discovered. Based on documents obtained by BNC, the AMLC is seizing 39 bank and insurance accounts and nearly a dozen vehicles registered to Mendoza. Several real estate properties are also being taken from him. Mendoza is part of the group of Henry Alcantara and Bryce Hernandez, accused of receiving billions in kickbacks from ghost or substandard flood control projects in Bulacan. The move marks one of the biggest AMLC actions in the flood control investigation, a critical turn as authorities follow the money trail behind infrastructure corruption. Analysts say a decisive cleanup is crucial to restoring trust in government contracts, steady investor sentiment, and keep capital flowing into the Philippine economy. A new survey by the Octa Research Group shows most Filipinos are furious and fearful over the multi-billion peso flood control corruption scandal. The Tugon ng Masa survey conducted from September 25 to 30 found that 60% of 1,500 respondents are outraged. 30% feel fear and anxiety. 9% expressed sadness, and only 1% remain optimistic. Trust is highest in the Independent Commission for Infrastructure, with 46% saying it should lead the investigation, compared to 23% for the Senate and 13% for the House of Representatives. The survey also shows 83% support President Marcos's move to name flood control contractors, with only 3% disagreeing. Octa's findings reveal the depth of public outrage and a growing demand for independent accountability. Analysts warn that without credible reform, corruption could continue to undermine public trust and weaken investor confidence in our economy. Under fire, Senator Chiz Escudero is defending a 30 million peso campaign donation from a top flood control contractor during his 2022 senatorial run. His legal counsel, Ramon Esguerra, says the donation is legal, fully declared, and consistent with long-standing practice. Esguerra submitted Escudero's response to the show cause order issued by the Commission on Elections, which is investigating whether the contribution violated rules on contractor donations. He insists that the law is on the senator's side and expresses confidence that the COMELEC will find no wrongdoing. The 30 million peso donation is also the subject of a separate ethics complaint filed in the Senate by lawyer Elridge Marvin Aceron. The controversy tightens the political spotlight on both campaign finance and public works contractors as investigators probe the links between money, influence, and the billion-peso flood control scandal. A major win for transparency. The public can now access the statements of assets, liabilities, and net worth, or SALNs, of government officials. That includes the president, vice president, heads of constitutional commissions, and local government units, or LGUs. Under a new memorandum circular issued by Ombudsman Jesus Crispin Remulla, the public no longer needs the consent of the SALN owner to request a copy.
The general rule is that all SALNs will be granted access to, except for several instances, and these are that the office is not the official repository, that the SALN is not on file, the request is for an unauthorized commercial purpose, that the requesting party has a derogatory record of misuse, the request is linked to a pending case to influence or harass.
The Office of the Ombudsman is also urging the Senate and Judiciary to follow what it calls a transparency move. The decision is being welcomed by governance reform advocates, saying it strengthens accountability, builds public trust, and sends a strong signal to investors that the country is serious about clean and transparent leadership. Now, a new website is making government spending transparent, letting the public track funds from proposal to approval. The platform, built by tech volunteers behind the civil society initiative bettergov.ph, uses existing data sets from the Budget Department, including the National Expenditure Program and the General Appropriations Act. Volunteers say they want the platform to grow into a living website, reflecting budget changes, revisions, and real-time updates. As Congress moves ahead with the 6.79 trillion peso national budget for 2026. The group is ready to meet with House and Senate leaders to discuss technical integration and is open to working with investigative journalists, civil society organizations, and academic institutions to build dashboards that mirror official data. Advocates say tools like these can help detect irregularities faster, strengthening public oversight and reinforce business confidence in the country's drive for transparent governance. The House passes a record 6.79 trillion peso budget for 2026, a milestone number that revives old questions. Where does the money go, and who makes sure that it's being spent well? Critics point to unprogrammed funds and politicized projects as potential openings for abuse, even as lawmakers tout this year's budget as the most transparent one yet. Now, among those who voted no, Caloocan 2nd District Representative Edgar Erice, who's been pushing for stronger oversight and accountability in infrastructure spending. Joining us now is Congressman Erice on his vote, the controversial funds, and what it will take to rebuild trust in public spending and in our government institutions. Good morning, Congressman Erice, and thank you for joining us this morning.
Thank you, Maiki. Good morning.
Okay, Congressman Erice, let's start with the opposition to the 2026 budget. You oppose the final version of this budget. How far is this version from what you would have wanted, and what were your main reservations?
My objection is focused solely on the presence of the unprogrammed funds. I am actually prepared to support the president's budget because it's his budget, and I know for a fact that it should be the president who should be doing the vision for this year's expenditures. But unfortunately, merong unprogrammed funds. May unprogrammed. So I think it's unconstitutional. So composed of two parts. It's not only the budget of expenditures, it's also the statement of the sources of financing. Yung budget of expenditures, definite yun, may line items. Yung source of financing, definite din kung saan ang sources, whether from the BIR, from customs, and proceeds of loans. Yun yung definite talaga yung source of financing. Dito sa unprogrammed funds, may lump sum yung appropriation. Lump sum. At bukod sa lump sum, walang uncertain yung financing. Kasi ang sources lang ng financing niyan, kung magkakaroon ng new revenues, which is unlikely, o kaya magkaroon ng savings, future pa yun. At pangatlo, yung proceeds of new loan. Matagal naman i-transact yung loan. Kaya usually, nagagamit itong unprogrammed funds. For example, in the last 3 years, from 2023 to 2025, ginawa ng Congress noon yung program funds, yung mga projects under the program funds, inilipat nila sa unprogram. So nawalan ito ng funding source.
Okay.
At pinasok nila yung mga hindi pinag-aralan ng executive department ng mga pet projects ng mga legislators.
Okay.
Diyan na napunta sa
Sir,
mga...
just to get this straight, if not for the 243 billion pesos in unprogrammed funds, this budget would have been okay for you?
Yes, we scrutinize this daily until the wee hours of the morning. There's no perfect budget, but I have some reservation, but I can forgo those reservations. My reservation lies on the scrapping of the funds intended for key flood control projects in Metro Manila. Kasi in addition, ibig sabihin nun, by next year, malalala yung baha sa Metro Manila. Million yung magsasuffer. Pero baka may plano dyan si Presidente, so I can forgo that. Ang problema lang, yung unprogrammed funds, it violates Section 22 of the Constitution and Section 22, Article 7 of the Constitution and Section 25, Line 6 of Article 7 of the Constitution.
Okay, sir, you're ready to take this all the way up to the Supreme Court?
Yes, of course. We have to really bring it to the Supreme Court para maliwanag yung demarcation line between the executive and legislative powers as to the budget.
Last year, sir, these unprogrammed funds were at around 800 billion pesos, almost a trillion. This is so much less now at 243 billion pesos. But it's still, you'd say this is still a major source of corruption, sir.
Yes, yes. Because yung mga 70% of the budget, yung MOE, personal services, 30% na lang talaga yung mga new projects. So, yung 243 billion is a big chunk of the remaining funds for projects. Saka sabi ko nga, hindi naman sigurado itong itong pondo na ito. Kung talagang kailangan to, dapat nilagay nila sa program funds. Revenue, magkaroon ng other source of financing, then we can always pass a supplemental budget. And then it will be itemized and it will be subjected to the scrutiny of Congress.
Yeah, so we could have just passed it without the unprogrammed funds and just asked for supplemental budgets. Okay, on another front, sir, let's talk about political influence. The system of giving lawmakers guaranteed slices of the infrastructure budget is often seen as a backdoor for pork. How do we make project funding fairer, based on merit and need and not based on political influence?
Well, basically, in the 2026 budget, meron namang semblance of allocating by need. Hindi naman pare-pareho, hindi naman guaranteed per district, ganito yung allocation. So, iba-iba, depende sa population, depende sa land area, depende doon sa mga problema. Pero kalokohan yung sasabihin na hindi pwedeng makialam yung mga representatives in the budget preparation, especially in the ground level, in the community level, because kami yung front line sa mga problema ng mamamayan. So we have to make sure na yung mga problema na yan matutugunan by putting it into the General Appropriations Act. For example, I'll give you an example. Pati mga amendments, importante rin na may amendments, wag lang insertions. Yung amendments is prior to the approval on second reading. Yung insertions kasi yung BICAM na lang nag-uusap So yun ang nagkaroon ng problema. For example, in my district, yung C3 road is a very crucial road leading to the North Harbor. So lagi na lang yan, pag bumabaha, hindi na makakadaan yung mga logistics, yung mga trucks, trailers. So hindi na ponduhan ito. So talagang inilabang ko kasi billions of pesos nakaka-apekto sa economy natin na hindi maitaas itong portion. Imagine for 25 million pesos, we will be gaining billions of pesos in terms of business. So naipasok ko yung 25 billion na to.
Okay, now going to infrastructure oversight and reform, sir. The Independent Commission, you've been pushing to strengthen the Independent Commission on Infrastructure by giving it subpoena and contempt powers. Why are these powers so essential, sir, and what would happen without them?
Malaking problema yan. Kung wala silang contempt powers, wala silang subpoena powers, they can be ignored, especially kasi yung executive order, powerful yan para sa mga executive branch of the government, mga employees, mga officials of the different agencies. But when it comes to legislators, when it comes to contractors, private individuals, banks, pwede nilang i-ignore. Then may mahaba pa yung proseso, then the ICI would have to go to court to compel them to testify or attend the hearing. So, pangalawa, para maging independent talaga of the executive, dapat talaga legislated. Kasi pangatlo, pwedeng i-abolish yan anytime by the executive department. Pero kung itong batas yan, hindi basta-basta ma-abolish. Pangapat, magre-rely sila sa presidente para sa pondo. Pero pagka yan ay batas, ang nagpondo dyan yung batas talaga.
Okay,
Just a product
Congressman
of the law.
Arisa, thank you so much for your time. Unfortunately, that's all we have for now. But thank you so much for sharing your thoughts with us.
Thank you, Mikey.
Okay, we're taking a quick break. Please stay with us as we dive deep into the numbers and the narratives that matter most to your bottom line. Welcome back. Let's check on how Asian markets are doing this Wednesday morning. Right now, I'm looking at a sea of green. The Nikkei 225 is higher by 1%. Hong Kong's Hang Seng Index higher by 1.2%. Shanghai's Composite higher by 0.2%. And Singapore's Straits Times Index higher by 0.2%. Here at home, Philippine shares extended their gains for a second straight session yesterday as investors continued to pick up bargains amid a more dovish policy outlook and stronger sentiment from Wall Street. PSE index rose 0.4% to close at 60.76, its highest level this week. Analysts say that the market's rebound is supported by lower long-term yields and by expectations of another interest rate cut by the central bank before the end of the year. Overall, a modest but steady climb for the local market as investors continue to look for catalysts and policy clarity to sustain that momentum. Right now, taking a look at the PSE index as of 10:22 this morning, the main gauge is in the green, higher by 0.4% to 60.97. Broader all shares index is up as well, higher by 0.3% to 36.78. Taking a look at these sub-indices, everything is in the green in positive territory, with the mining and oil counter up the most, up by 2.9% in early trade. Total volume is thin at 159 million shares. Value also is thin at 371 million pesos. Market breadth is positive with 65 advancers, 27 decliners, and 53 stocks unchanged. Taking a look at the currencies, the peso opened at 58.10 against the greenback, up from its previous close of 58.22. Now there's a province on the rise. Eastern Samar posts the fastest economic growth among all Philippine provinces and cities, surging 10.2% in 2024 on strong tourism recovery and government investments in connectivity. The province outpaced both the national growth rate of 5.7% and Eastern Visayas' 6.2%. Puerto Princesa and Batanes rounded out the top three with growth rates of 9.8% and 9.6% respectively. Nationwide, all 82 provinces and 33 highly urbanized cities registered economic gains in 2024, with Quezon City, Makati, Laguna, and Manila each topping 1 trillion pesos in output. Together, these urban economies now account for over a fifth of the country's GDP, underscoring how tourism, infrastructure, and local governance continue to drive the Philippine growth story. Now, on the corporate front, building momentum, Megawide Construction Corporation secures 2 new contracts from MegaWorld Corporation to build residential towers in its township developments. In a disclosure, Megawide says that the multi-billion-peso deals cover civil, structural, and architectural works, as well as MEPF. These add to a long list of projects the two companies have collaborated on over the years. Megawide President and CEO Edgar Saavedra says that they're pleased to work again with MegaWorld, highlighting their shared commitment to sustainability, excellence, and speed to market. The projects include Uptown Modern in Uptown Bonifacio and One Portwood in Newport City. Megawide will deploy its precast technology and integrated construction solutions to deliver the projects. The new contracts strengthen Megawide's position in the country's property and infrastructure sector, signaling steady investment momentum and confidence in the real estate market despite economic headwinds. On to world news. Israel is cutting by half the number of aid trucks allowed into Gaza starting Wednesday. Authorities say that the move comes after the slow release of hostages' bodies by Hamas, although the group claims it needs more time to locate them. So far, Hamas has turned over 4 coffins of dead hostages, with nearly 24 presumed dead and 1 still unaccounted for inside Gaza. The decision further strains humanitarian operations in the territory as pressure builds for both sides to uphold the ceasefire terms. And that's it for Business 360. I'm Maiki Oreta. Thank you for joining us, and keep it here on BNC, the Bilyonaryo News Channel.